My elder sister has a strong and unyielding temperament, preferring death to submission. When my mother was seriously ill and in urgent need of money, the CEO forced her to be his kept woman. She said coldly and proudly, "If you humiliate me like this, I'd rather die." When our company was maliciously suppressed by the CEO, my sister declared with righteousness, "Even if I have to die, I will never be coerced." In the end, my father was driven to jump off a building, and my brother was sent to prison later. We were kidnapped and taken to a war-torn country. She wasn't afraid at all and said, "I'd rather die than be saved by Harrison. If you have the guts, kill me." The kidnappers were enraged by her. They wanted to disfigure her and torture her in turn. It was me who stepped forward and endured the humiliation for her. However, when Harrison came to save her, she proposed that he only ransom her. He will definitely use saving you as an excuse to force me to marry him. I might as well die. I begged her with tears in my eyes to call the police for me after she got out, but I waited for 5 years without any rescue. When we met again, I was in such a terrible state that I was barely human and my life was coming to an end. But she had already become a glamorous and respected wife. I asked her why she didn't save me. She said unhappily, "If I were treated so badly, I would never want to live on. Sarah, are you really that afraid of death? Damn it. You would have been dead if it weren't for me." I trembled with anger. She frowned in confusion and said, "Nonsense. How could I die? I'm the female protagonist." It turned out that she relied on the fact that she had transmigrated into a book and had the female protagonist halo. So she was so nonchalant. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn on the day my sister and I were kidnapped together. The tip of the kidnapper's knife was pressed against her face, which showed her determination to never yield, even in the face of death. "You must have been sent by Harrison's enemies. I don't want to have anything to do with him. If you have the guts, kill me." My sister was completely unafraid of the sharp knife in front of her and closed her eyes in annoyance. Bob, the bearded kidnapper leader with the flesh on his face twitching, licked his lips bloodthirstily and said, "I, Bob, especially like to teach tough-mouthed people like you a lesson after I scar your face. I'll call all my brothers outside to have a taste of you." With a flick of the sharp blade, a blood stain instantly appeared on my sister's face. Her eyelashes trembled slightly, but she stubbornly turned her head to one side. "Boss, could she really be the woman of some big shot?" another kidnapper suddenly asked. Bob had been completely enraged by my sister's attitude and roared, "I've killed dozens of people. I don't care who she is. Once she falls into my hands, even a dragon has to submit to me. That's right. Since this woman has no value for us to exploit, let's sell her to the underground brothel in Country W." In just a few words, they decided our fate. And my sister only then realized that these people were transnational criminals who didn't know Harrison at all. When several Lyris men surrounded her and were about to do something to her, she looked at me in a panic, bit her lip, and said, "Little sister." This time I kept my head down, remained silent, and shrank into the corner, pretending to be timid. In my previous life, the kidnapping was also related to Harrison. We were filming in an ancient town until late at night. My sister heard that Harrison was supporting a new actress. Feeling humiliated, she refused to get into the nanny car he bought and insisted on walking back to the hotel at night. I said it was very dangerous here because it was close to Country W, a war-torn country, and there was no need to be so stubborn. She snorted coldly and said, "Are you really that timid and afraid of death? I would rather die than accept anything from a philandering man." As a result, we met these illegal mercenaries who had fled to the ancient town and were preparing to cross the border. It was me who negotiated with them to protect her chastity and held on until Harrison came to save her. But she refused to take me with her. Of course, I wouldn't let go and held onto her tightly. She then used our family ties to blackmail me, saying, "Sarah, when Dad jumped off the building, he didn't force me. My brother would rather go to prison than see me give in. Even when Mom was so sick, she never thought of sacrificing me. If you're so unreasonable, you're forcing me to die." Naturally, I didn't want to force her. But later, I was sold by the bearded man to an underground club and was tortured until I was in a terrible state. She turned around and married Harrison sweetly. I endured the hardships day by day in that hell on earth, becoming thinner and thinner, numb, and living like a stinking dead fish. I thought about death, but I still held on with my last breath, hoping that one day I could escape and ask Bella face to face why she had treated me like this. I didn't understand before my sister, who always said she wanted to die, had always lived a noble and comfortable life. But our company went bankrupt. My father died. and my brother was in prison. If I hadn't swallowed my pride and knelt in front of the Hill family group for 3 days and 3 nights, finally making Harrison soften his heart and arrange for my mother to be hospitalized. My mother would have been gone long ago, but after my sister knew that I had given in, she only showed disgust towards me and said, "Everyone must die someday. How can you be so lacking in integrity?" It's hateful that I didn't see her true face until 5 years later when I escaped. She sacrificed our entire family just to fulfill her unyielding persona and make Harrison think highly of her. I was so angry that I wanted to die together with her. But my life had already been destroyed, and I was terminally ill. How could I fight against the powerful Mrs. Hill? Finally, on a snowy night, I died of illness in a bridge cave, filled with despair. Fortunately, God has eyes and gave me a chance to start over. This time, I want to see if without my sacrifice, my sister, who relies on the female protagonist halo and refuses to yield, can fight against these ruthless outlaws and escape from this living hell in Country W. Little Sister, seeing that I didn't come to her rescue for a long time. My sister's voice finally showed a hint of panic. Bob used his strength and tore her dress. She couldn't control herself and shouted, "Sarah, what are you still standing there for? Save me." I sneered and said, "Sister, aren't you someone who would rather die than submit even now? What are you waiting for?" She was stunned, looked at me in disbelief, and gradually her face turned red with shame and anger. "Haha, this is interesting." Bob laughed heartily. A person like him, who lived a life of danger, hated being the most. My words hit the mark. "That's right. You not afraid of death? Come on, let me see it." He pressed on aggressively, full of excitement, thinking of my previous life. At that time, my act of stepping forward to save my sister enraged Bob. He thought I was using tricks to challenge his authority and took all his anger out on me. "Do you want to act out sisterly love? Then you'd better see it through, otherwise both of you will die. Ha." "What do you think? Do you still dare to stick your neck out for others casually?" I gritted my teeth tightly, forced a smile, and said I would save her, begging them to spare my sister, and I never changed my words. I was in pain, and I was also afraid. But I knew that once I showed the slightest bit of weakness or hesitation, all my efforts would be in vain, and my sister would still not be able to escape this disaster. Oh, but what about my sister? Another kidnapper smiled and stuffed a gun into my sister's hand. My sister let out a scream when she realized what it was and threw the gun far away. She looked both pitiful and ridiculous. I turned my head away in disdain. Haha, this woman is more afraid of death than most people. The kidnappers laughed heartlessly and the punishment began. Hearing my sister's shrill screams, I clenched my fists. My heart felt both gratified and bitter. I was gratified that she was finally getting what she deserved. It was pitiful that our family had paid too high a price for this hypocritical woman. Dad would never come back. I bit my hand tightly and my eyes gradually became cold and determined. I vowed that in this life I would never be a stepping stone for Bella again. After Bob was the first to have his way, he finally remembered me. He stepped up to me and looked at me with interest. "Bob, my sister really has a powerful suitor." I smiled obsequiously at him. I knew I had to save myself. Otherwise, my fate would be no different from that in my previous life. Bob exhaled a puff of smoke and said, "You're quite sensible. Every family has its own problems. Now that I've offended her, even if I escape, she won't let me go." I said sincerely, "Bob, I just want to live." Bob laughed sinisterly and said, "Little girl, few of the people I've trafficked have survived. Harrison, the CEO of the Hill family group, has a good relationship with the well-known J City Chamber of Commerce in Country W. If he wants to save my sister, he will come after you within a month." Bob turned to look at my sister's miserable state, and a hint of viciousness flashed in his eyes. It's common knowledge in Country H that Harrison is madly pursuing Bella, a rising star in the entertainment industry, who is my sister. Bob took out his phone, then cursed, and his face became serious. With the backing of a lawless place like Country W, Bob was indeed fearless, but the J City Chamber of Commerce has been rooted in Country W for hundreds of years. With intricate relationships and connections to local armed forces, Bob couldn't remain indifferent. At this time, another kidnapper came over and said dismissively, "Boss, what's the big deal? We'll send this woman to beauty tonight." I don't believe that Harrison will still care about her then, right? Unless he doesn't care about his reputation. Bob's expression improved a bit, and he agreed with this statement. He pointed at me and said, You're quite a scheming woman, and I like that. All right, I'll put in a good word, and you can work as a cleaner at Beauty. In my previous life, I had figured out Bob's preferences. I quickly thanked him without showing the slightest bit of reluctance on my face. Sure enough, Bob groaned in satisfaction. I silently looked at my sister, who was covered in bruises and was being tossed around like a dead fish, and I felt no pity in my heart. In this life, I want to live well. Mom and brother are still waiting for me. Beauty is the most heavily guarded and secure den of iniquity in Country W backed by evil forces. It stops at nothing. In my previous life, it was here that I met Mia, a very famous online influencer in Country H at that time. After Mia went missing, her family was willing to spend tens of millions to save her. But without connections, they had to accept their fate. My sister was very disdainful at that time and said, "People are first despised by others because they despise themselves." If she was determined not to give in, who could force her? If I were treated like that, I would have killed myself long ago. But when it came to her being forced, she took it for granted and pushed me in front of her. I'm Harrison's woman. He will come to save me sooner or later. Aren't you just looking for someone to make money? My sister can take my place. These words enraged the thugs at Beauty again. It was me who flattered them and negotiated on her behalf, saying that she had a strong temper and might really die if forced, so it would be better to give her some time. I would make up for the losses she caused. The boss didn't want to lose a celebrity for nothing, so he reluctantly agreed to my proposal. I started working day and night. When I couldn't hold on anymore, my sister would say indifferently, "Sarah, I'll find a way to treat Mom's illness as long as I'm okay. Harrison will spend any amount of money." She always said she didn't want to be coerced, but she was very good at threatening others. In this life, with Bob's favor, I went to the cleaning department and was relatively safe for the time being, but it wasn't enough. I had to escape from here. The next day, before my sister's wounds had healed, she was urgently arranged to serve in a private room. I pushed the cleaning cart to my sister's room and passed by two thugs holding electric batons. The two of them were smoking and sneered. "There's nothing special about this woman. She behaved herself before I even turned on the electric bat." Haha, that's true. I remember that Mia. That online influencer a while ago didn't behave until her legs were broken, right? I lowered my head, opened the door, and went in. My sister was struggling to put on a Chong Sam. Her hands were shaking so much that she couldn't even zip it up. When she saw me, she suddenly picked up the makeup box next to her and threw it at me, furious. "Sarah, are you crazy? Why didn't you save me yesterday? You wanted to be stubborn. You insisted on walking at night, and you provoked Bob yourself. Why should I save you? If I save you, I have to sacrifice myself. Do you deserve it?" I dodged to the side and immediately threw the dirty rag in my hand at her. Damn it, I was being too nice to her. She was stunned. "Sarah, how can you be so cold-blooded? Dad said in his suicide note that we should help each other in the future. And brother also told you not to put me in a difficult position. You're trying to force me to die." Her eyes were red, and she put on her usual stubborn expression as if she had suffered a great deal of injustice. She actually had the nerve to mention Dad. Dad jumped off the building because he was afraid you would be humiliated by Harrison. But you're still alive after being humiliated like that last night. Do you think you him? I walked forward and zipped up her dress forcefully. Then I fixed her hair and makeup and pushed her out the door. In my previous life, I was also forced to put on this uniform that represented shame, and there was no turning back. She was afraid and didn't want to do it, but was I not afraid back then? You didn't have the guts to die yesterday and debassied yourself. Don't pretend to be noble in front of me today. I threw the words she had mocked me with in my previous life back at her. "You." The two thugs outside the door came back and urged her to hurry up in a vicious tone. My sister had no way out. She was scared and anxious. A look of hesitation flashed in her eyes. As if she had made a decision, she said reluctantly, "Tell your boss that I'm willing to film a ransom video. I'm Harrison's woman. He loves me desperately and will pay any amount of money. If you don't believe me, call him." It's really stupid to make me do such a demeaning thing. "I don't believe your boss can't figure out this account," she ordered. "Take me to see your boss now." The thugs were impatient and slapped her. "Damn it. I don't care whose woman you are. Hurry up and come with me to room 2303. My sister was dumbfounded and was carried out like a dead fish. I pushed the cart and followed silently behind. My sister, of course, didn't know that from the moment Bob had his way with her, she had become a hot potato with no way out. The boss of Beauty wouldn't let her bargain. He would only make sure she lost all value. The guest was naturally overjoyed to have a celebrity in beauty before drinking much wine. He quickly asked me to clean up and leave. "Sarah Harrison will definitely come to save me. You'll pay for this." She gritted her teeth, blaming me for everything. "Sister, didn't you always avoid getting involved with him and having any entanglements? Why are you calling him Harrison now?" I pretended to be confused. I'm not afraid of Harrison coming." I was scrubbing the toilet vigorously when Mia stumbled in and vomited violently. "Listen, the guest in room 555 on the 5th floor has a powerful background and is also from Country H. I heard the boss kidnapped him by mistake. They've been treating him well with good food and drinks. He'll probably be sent out soon. Find a way to impress him and get him to take you with him. This is your only chance." After vomiting, she went to the mirror to touch up her makeup and revealed this crucial information to me. "Don't get the wrong idea. I just can't stand Bella. She's a hypocritical and selfish woman." She added. A warm feeling welled up inside me. Mia was a big influencer in the country. She was betrayed by her best friend and sold to beauty in my past life. We became close. Friends quickly because we shared the same miserable fate and understood each other's pain sadly. She couldn't take it anymore and committed suicide in the 3rd year unexpectedly just a few days after I arrived in this life. She showed me kindness again. "I worked with Bella yesterday and heard her recommend you to the guests. I don't think you'll be wearing that cleaning uniform for much longer. If I can escape, I'll definitely take you with me," I said earnestly. She looked at me and suddenly burst into laughter. "So naive. You actually believe me. You're so easy to deceive." I did believe her. Even if we didn't have a past connection in this life, she saw herself in me and didn't want me to be betrayed by someone close and end up like her. I was indeed in a hurry, extremely anxious. Not to mention that my sister wanted to drag me down with her. In 20 days, Harrison would find beauty. I wasn't sure if he would save my sister, but I knew for sure he wouldn't save me. He might even take his anger out on me. I had to find a way out before he arrived. Finally, on the 18th day, I got the chance to go to the 5th floor. I hadn't been idle during this time. I kept going over my memories from my past life and thinking about all the bargaining chips at my disposal. The moment I knocked on the door of room 555 and saw Jack, I knew I could win him over. Jack didn't know me, but I remembered him clearly 6 years ago when our company was filing for bankruptcy. He came to negotiate with us. He was very sincere and offered to buy the company at a generous price. At that time, my father had died. My brother was in prison. My mother didn't understand business, and only my sister and I were handling the aftermath. But facing Jack's favorable offer, my sister refused coldly and haughtily. "Mr. Jack, don't waste your efforts. I won't accept your offer. It's actually a good thing that the company is gone. Now you won't keep pestering us." I was very confused and argued in Jack's favor, but as a sophomore in high school, I couldn't convince my sister. What a pity for all of Professor Smith's life's work, Jack said regretfully as he left, and he even reached out and patted my head. That sentence gave me confidence. Although the company went bankrupt under pressure, the core patents had always been in my brother's name, and my brother had rather gone to prison than sell the technology to Harrison. In my past life, by the time I escaped, my mother and brother had already passed away. It was that those patents must have ended up in my sister's hands. Finally, having sorted out my thoughts, I was filled with excitement. Just as I was about to speak, the boss suddenly knocked on the door and came in with my sister. After entering the room, the boss first apologized, saying that he was sorry for scaring Jack. He also said that the James family's private jet would land directly on the rooftop of Beauty the day after tomorrow. "Mr. Jack, please rest assured. Although it's not safe outside, we can definitely ensure your safe arrival at W Country International Airport." Jack sipped his tea leisurely and nodded. A flash of annoyance at being ignored crossed the boss's eyes, but he quickly suppressed it. He pushed my sister forward. "Mr. Jack is my honored guest. You'd better serve him well these 2 days and make sure he's satisfied. Mr. Jack, this woman is a famous actress from your country. She's very popular here in Beauty. Stop talking." My sister's eyes suddenly lit up. "Just tell him how much it costs to ransom me. I'll leave with him the day after tomorrow." She rudely pushed the boss aside and gracefully walked over to Jack, casually draping her arm over his shoulder. Jack raised an eyebrow. My sister couldn't wait to start pouring out her words. "I have a strong character and hate being forced into anything if it weren't for you in this room today. I would have rather died than endured this humiliation, even though you didn't know I was kidnapped. I was humiliated right under your nose. You have to make it up to me when we get back to our country, or I won't forgive you." As expected of someone who had won an acting award, her coquettish and angry act was incredibly charming and dazzling. "Also, before we leave, you must make this gang boss kneel and apologize to me. Otherwise, I won't be able to let this go." She seemed so certain that Jack would take her away that she immediately started getting back at those who had wronged her. Starting with the boss of beauty, I couldn't help but gasp. I really didn't expect my sister to be this reckless. She had been so pampered by Harrison in the country that she had no idea how terrifying the boss was. But having spent 5 years in beauty in my past life, I knew very well. The boss had indeed been very polite to Jack, but it wasn't because of Jack himself. It was because the James family had offered enough valuable things to rescue him. Once he was provoked, this deal could be canceled at any time. My heart immediately rose to my throat. The boss stared at my sister menacingly, smiling in a terrifying way, speaking halting Chinese. He pointed at Jack, then at himself, and confirmed each word slowly. "You mean I'll take you away, and I should kneel and apologize to you? Of course. You really picked the wrong person to mess with." My sister raised her chin contemptuously. Maybe in her mind in this world only Harrison, the male lead, and Jack, the male supporting character, were powerful. Just like she believed that as the female protagonist, she would never die. My sister looked at Jack triumphantly. For all these years, he could only watch over me from afar and never had the chance to get close. How could he refuse my request? "You should be grateful that you're not from country H otherwise. Kneeling and apologizing would be the least of your problems." Right now, my sister's female protagonist, arrogance was off the charts. She didn't realize that her words were trampling all over the dignity of the two men in the room. Finally, Jack placed his teacup on the table. Not too hard, but not too soft, causing tea to splash everywhere. My sister pouted and reluctantly softened her tone. Fine. I'll break off all ties with Harrison when we get back to our country. Is that good enough?" Seeing that Jack wasn't moved, she muttered discontentedly, "Really, your unk not very loyal. You should at least give me some face in front of others." I felt a pang of discomfort and goosebumps covered my body. As an outsider, I knew very well that Jack hadn't given my sister any false hopes over the years. They hadn't even had any interactions. Did she really believe in that so-called original book plot? And my sister suddenly rushed towards me. I couldn't stand it anymore and tightly covered her mouth. "That's enough, Bella. Do you really want to die, Sarah? It's you who's going to die." She bit me hard and pushed me away. "You're so desperate to steal my man. You secretly do all the things I disdain to do, thinking you can please them by stepping on me. You're completely insane." I widened my eyes in an instant. The only man she had cared about all these years was Harrison. Accusing me of trying to please my sworn enemy was a huge insult. You still won't admit it. Back then, when I refused Harrison's help and chased him away, you immediately went to the Hill family group and knelt there for 3 days, acting all pitiful. And with Jack, I clearly rejected his offer, but you were the one who eagerly spoke in his favor, trying to get his attention. Are you trying to seduce him today, hoping he'll save you? The more she talked, the more convinced she was that her speculation was right, looking like she had just had a revelation. "Oh, now I know why you refused to save me. You want to ruin me so you can take my place. Sarah, you're spineless and cowardly. They'll never like you, so you can only act like a vicious supporting character doing despicable things. You're so dark and disgusting." I was so angry that my chest hurt. Did she have any common sense at all? I knelt at the Hill family group because I wanted to save my mother. I spoke for Jack because his offer to buy the company was the most sincere. In my sister's eyes, these had become despicable acts of trying to steal men from her. I had so much to say, but it all seemed absurd. This was the first time I truly understood what it meant to be unable to defend myself, and I didn't even bother trying. "Hardy, is this the satisfactory service you promised me?" Jack finally spoke up. The boss leisurely took a puff of his cigar and swept his thoughtful gaze over us as if weighing something. "Mr. Jack, you don't know this woman?" he asked. "That's not it." Jack shook his head, looking puzzled. "I have indeed met Ms. Bella once, but it was just a normal business discussion." "Hardy, the cost of ransoming someone here is very high. Although this lady is trying so hard to leave with me," he shrugged. "I'm afraid there's nothing I can do." Jack was truly a shrewd businessman. His words distanced himself from the situation while still saving the boss's face. "Haha, I see. Then it's my fault for not training my people well. I almost offended a valued guest. The boss's expression brightened and he laughed heartily. The two shook hands and made up. My sister turned pale, looking completely stunned. Jack, you fell in love with me at first sight and have been infatuated with me ever since. As the devoted second male lead who remained single all his life, how can you say such things about me? I know I've been distancing myself from you and ignoring you all these years, making you angry, she said. A look of understanding flashing in her eyes as she rushed to explain, but it's all because Harrison has been chasing after me relentlessly. And I don't want to be the kind of woman who plays the field. Can't you understand me? If I didn't do that, how could you think highly of me? Jack frowned, annoyed by my sister's persistence. Miss Bella, please behave yourself. Just then the door opened and it was the two thugs who had been following my sister. The boss's face turned as black as ink. Look at what you've done. The thugs looked terrified and immediately grabbed my sister and dragged her out. My sister screamed and kicked the ground desperately. Jack, you'll regret this. I swear. As she was almost at the door, she turned her head and stared at Jack, her anger turning to hatred. Don't be so cocky. If I wasn't in this situation, do you think I'd choose you? You're already Harrison's loser, and your James family will be bought out by Harrison in the future. You'll end up ruined. Jack remained unmoved, and once she stepped out of that door, what awaited her was extremely cruel and bloody punishment. She hooked her feet tightly onto the door, her eyes darting around, anxious and scared. Jack, save me. I have the Smith family's patents. Weren't you interested in them? As long as you take me out, I can convince my brother. MH. Her mouth was covered mercilessly the moment the door closed. The sound of kicks, punches, and my sister's sobs and screams could be heard from the corridor. My heart sank since she could reveal my trump card. My sister wasn't completely stupid. Unfortunately, her narcissism had made her miss the best opportunity to negotiate. Mr. Jack, Miss Sarah, there's no need to waste your efforts. Sure enough, after my sister's crazy outburst, Jack's attitude towards me also turned cold. What chilled my heart even more was that he didn't seem to care at all about the Smith family's patents that my sister had mentioned earlier. But I'm not without a chance of winning, my sister, believing she knows the ending because she's transmigrated into a book, while I, Reborn, have witnessed the business landscape 5 years later. At that time, Harrison dominated everything, and I couldn't do anything to my sister. I once considered cooperating with Jack, but the once glorious James family group was gradually declining and could barely save itself. My sister was right about one thing. In the end, Harrison did acquire the James family group with decisive measures. The newspaper I picked up on the day I died had the headline news about the bankruptcy of the James family group. After reading it, I knew that I had no hope of avenging myself in this life. In the swirling snow, I slowly lost my vitality. But in this life, there's still time. The current situation is unfavorable for me. I must strike precisely at the heart of the matter. Has the Biomedical Research and Development Center that Mr. Jack invested heavily in recently made a key breakthrough? I asked. Sure enough, Jack paused in his movement to show me out, and his eyes suddenly became deep and vigilant. Miss Sarah is very well informed. This is just an introduction. It depends on whether Mr. Jack is willing to listen further. He sized me up, then sat down readily and poured me a cup of tea. Miss Sarah, your bargaining chip better be substantial. Enough, naturally. What if I tell you that the leader of your research and development team has been conducting illegal human experiments behind your back? What did you say? Jack's face changed. He stood up abruptly, his gaze as sharp as a blade, as if he wanted to pierce through me. This is a serious matter, and I wouldn't make unfounded claims. Moreover, given Mr. Jack's character, you will surely investigate before believing it, right? Do you know that he is? I looked into his eyes. Calmly, I know he's your brother-in-law and he once saved your life. Anything else? That's all for now, I replied honestly. In the newspapers of my previous life, there were only a few brief mentions of this matter, stating that after the illegal human experiments were exposed, it caused a huge uproar across society. Not only did the James family lose hundreds of millions of dollars, but the families of the victims made such a big scene that it directly destroyed the reputation the James family had built up. Over the years, Jack, a business prodigy, could have led the James family to the peak, but he was betrayed by the person closest to him. What a pity. Aren't you afraid that I'll just leave after you've shown all your cards, Miss Sarah? As expected of the heir of the James family. Jack had already regained his composure and leaned back in his chair. This is just an internal crisis of the James family. What about the external threats? A businessman wouldn't reveal all their cards so easily. This piece of information was just the appetizer. Jack raised his eyebrows, indicating for me to continue, and started pouring me tea again. Mr. Jack has never been one to wait passively. 6 years ago, after failing to acquire the patents from the Smith family, you had the foresight to establish the current Biomedical Research Center, hoping to break free from technical constraints and fully dominate the market. Harrison seemingly gave up on this field, but he has long since acquired and laid out the upstream and downstream enterprises related to the products. Do you think all he's done is to obtain a ticket to cooperate with you when your technology matures in the future? Miss Sarah's perspective is very interesting. There was a hint of interest in Jack's eyes, and his fingers tapped the table rhythmically. At this moment, I became even more certain. I've always been skeptical of the claim in the newspapers at that time that Harrison successfully acquired the James family because of his vision, strategy, and the fact that the James family dug its own grave. I think Harrison's layout is just waiting for the right moment. Mr. Jack, why don't you guess if your brother-in-law's illegal experiments are exposed? You're forced to suspend the research, and Harrison suddenly seizes the opportunity to quickly move from small-scale trials to mass production and market launch. Do you think the James family will still have a chance to turn the tables? The relaxed smile on Jack's face faded. We both knew that the right moment, I kept emphasizing, referred to the patents of our Smith family. I had to make Jack recognize my speculation to reverse the current disadvantage and make the following negotiations favorable for me during our back and forth probing. The water in the teapot had boiled repeatedly, gurgling. Only then did I realize that I was so nervous that my mouth was dry and my throat was tight. Even at this point, I couldn't let down my guard. The actual patent rights of the Smith family were in my brother's hands, and the cost of ransoming me out of beauty was extremely high. So Jack wasn't obliged to choose to cooperate with me, afraid of showing the slightest bit of timidity. I endured the dry itch in my throat and didn't touch the teacup in front of me. Instead, I fixed my gaze on the tea tray, pretending to be calm and confident. Sarah Jack suddenly called my name, no longer referring to me as Miss Sarah. I looked up sharply. You're much better than your sister. Hey. Smiled and pushed the teacup towards me, tapping lightly beside it. There was appreciation in his eyes. The heart that I had been holding tightly finally relaxed, and I let out a long sigh of relief. But his next words almost made me burst into tears. I visited the prison several times, and so has Miss Bella. But no matter how much we tried to persuade him, your brother always just smiled calmly and said he had his own plans regarding the patents. It turns out he was waiting for Miss Sarah to grow up. I tightly covered my mouth, desperately suppressing the urge to cry out loud. It turned out that Bella had secretly visited my brother behind my back and had her own ulterior motives regarding the patents. She told me that my brother couldn't be visited because of major economic crimes, cutting off all contact between me and my brother for 6 years. How many things had she hidden from me? And what exactly did she want? When I got back to the cleaning department, the foreman said there would be no business tonight and everyone had to attend a study session. My face turned pale. In beauty, the so-called study session for everyone meant watching a public execution. According to the usual practice, the targets of public execution were usually those who intentionally harmed honored guests or tried to escape from beauty. Their fates were to endure inhumane torture and then be thrown into a cage of wild beasts or a snake pit and be bitten to death alive. Back then, Nia accidentally injured a guest and committed suicide. A hurry because she was afraid of the public execution. I wonder who the unlucky one is. Well, I do admire her courage, though. Mia sat next to me, lit a cigarette, looking rather mournful. She was extremely surprised when my sister was dragged up, covered in blood. She actually don't pity her. She thought she could escape from here and challenge the boss. I sneered coldly. Mia shook her head with a sigh. She always told us that a big shot would come to save her, so naive. On the platform, my sister was tied to a chair, her feet hanging limply in a horribly twisted position, her hair disheveled, and her face covered in blood. "Ha! Weren't you so confident that you'd leave beauty? Let's see how you walk without your legs." My sister was already unconscious. The person carrying out the punishment splashed a basin of cold water on her face. The first thing she did when she opened her eyes was search for me, looking shocked and hateful. "How dare you still be unrepentant?" the thug shouted, and a deep blood stain immediately appeared on the face my sister had always been so proud of. Ah, my face, my face. Looking at the blood in her hand, she screamed in a panic, "I'm a movie queen. Do you know how precious my face is? You ignorant fools. Do you know who Harrison is? I'm Mrs. Harrison. You're all doomed. He'll never let you off." But in return, she received several more lashes of the whip. Mia couldn't bear to watch and turned her head away. Is she crazy? Why is she still talking back at a time like this? I frowned. Just then the boss came to the venue, sneered at my sister, and then beckoned to me. "Come here." Mia hurriedly grabbed me, her eyes full of worry. "Don't be afraid. It'll be okay." I smiled at her. The boss sized me up and nodded. "You're Miss Sarah, right? You can leave tomorrow." My sister looked at me in disbelief. I knew the boss said this on purpose to break my sister's spirit. "The person who ransomed you was very generous. I heard you want to take another person with you." "Yes." My sister's eyes lit up with joy. Ignoring the injuries on her face, she quickly said, "Sarah, I'm your sister. Take me out quickly." Seeing that I just looked at her silently without answering, she became anxious, winking at me desperately and flattering me. "Little sister, I'm in so much pain. If I don't leave this hellhole, they'll definitely beat me to death. I knew you wouldn't abandon me. Hurry, take me away now." The corner of my mouth curved into a smile, and my sister also smiled excitedly with me just when everyone thought we were so close as sisters that we were about to hug and cry. I turned around and pointed precisely at Mia in the crowd. Mia tightly covered her mouth, big tears welling up in her eyes, and her whole body trembled with excitement. "Sarah, if you dare to play tricks on me, I'll never forgive you." In an instant, she rushed towards me. "Why don't you give it a try?" I held her hand tightly. "I said I'd take you out. I didn't want to leave any regrets from my previous life in this life." "Sarah, you're crazy. You'd rather save a promiscuous woman than me." My sister's eyes were bloodshot with anger, and she tightly grabbed me. I turned around and slowly pried her fingers off mine, one by one without mercy, just like she abandoned me in the previous life. "Sister, you've always been known for your strong character, preferring death to submission. When others wanted to make you their mistress, you were so unwilling to be humiliated that you wanted to die. But now I don't know how many people's mistress you've been. No, you're even worse than a mistress. If I save you, wouldn't you become a spineless person? I thought for a moment, however, my sister was about to curse, but held back, looking at me expectantly. "But don't worry, sister. If you really don't want to die, I'll call the police for you after I get out. So don't worry, you're playing me." As if I had just thought of something, I lightly slapped my own mouth. "Oh, look at what I'm saying, sister. You're the female protagonist. How could you die? I was just being silly. I deserve to be slapped." Deserve to be slapped. My sister seemed to have thought of something and suddenly panicked. "Sarah, could it be that you, sister, welcome back?" I smiled cry at her. When she was splashed awake and called herself Mrs. Harrison, I knew she had probably been reborn, too. Otherwise, after such torture with her delicate nature, how could she still be so arrogant and talk back defiantly? Then she must have remembered. To once she had just as confidently pushed me away, giving me false hope and deceiving me for 6 years. I leaned close to her ear, each word piercing her heart. "Sister, it's your turn to taste the despair of having your life destroyed. But I believe in you, sister. You definitely won't live on in humiliation, right? After all, you won't even have the chance to live on." The boss smiled sinisterly, having enjoyed the show enough. "All right, send this woman to the snake pit." Only then did my sister understand what I meant. The snake pit. Her face turned deathly pale, and she trembled all over, letting out a sharp scream, overwhelmed by fear. She even had the strength to struggle violently despite her serious injuries. She looked like a mad woman. The thugs were used to such scenes. They stuffed a gag in her mouth and dragged her away. Suddenly, the sound of a helicopter's propellers sounded overhead. The place for public punishment was on the rooftop, so the sound was as if it was right next to our ears. Everyone looked at each other in surprise. The boss's assistant rushed in. "Boss, it's Chairman Y's private helicopter. He said he's here to ransom a female celebrity named Bella." "Harrison, you're finally here. Woo, I almost couldn't see you." My sister, having cheated death, wept uncontrollably in Harrison's arms. Her sobs lasted a full half-minute without ceasing. Harrison's face was gloomy, allowing my sister to lean against him. The boss didn't look pleased either. Chairman Y had whispered something to him earlier, and it was clear that he reluctantly agreed to release my sister. "Mr. Harrison, I'm sure the general has explained Miss Bella's situation to you. Well, do you still want her? My sister's sobs halted. She instinctively tugged at the collar of Harrison's shirt. I've lost my chastity and shouldn't live on. I'm already content to see you before I die, Harrison. Goodbye. A look of struggle flashed across her face. Suddenly, she released Harrison and was about to jump off the rooftop. Chairman Y and the boss watched the scene with narrowed eyes. A glint flashed in Harrison's eyes, and in the end, he pulled my sister back. Silly girl, it's not your fault. How could I not want you? H1 was deeply affectionate, the other deeply moved. What a touching scene. Having learned her lesson, my sister didn't dare to cause any more trouble and urged Harrison to take her away immediately. Sarah, come here. After a moment of thought, Harrison reached out to me. No, my sister glared at me hatefully and blurted out to stop him. Harrison looked at her in confusion. In my previous life, a similar scene had occurred. Back then, my sister hadn't simply said no like this. She had pulled Harrison aside and said something. When they returned, Harrison looked at me with nothing but disgust and never mentioned taking me with them again. It was easy to guess that my sister must have told him lies about me, willingly degrading myself in beauty. Then she had pushed me away without a second thought while I cried helplessly. Sarah, do you want me to owe Harrison a favor so that he can force me to marry him? Dad, Mom, and brother were willing to sacrifice themselves rather than let me give in. How could you betray their wishes? Overwhelmed by fear, I knelt down and kowtowed to her, begging her not to abandon me, but she shook her head in disappointment. Sarah, you're being unreasonable. I'd rather die here than have you hold me back. She stood high and mighty, spotless, leaving me with no way out. Now it was her turn to be morally corrupted, yet she still wanted to destroy me. Harrison, don't let her leave here. My sister seemed to have made a decision and wore a solemn expression. However, Harrison didn't seem ready to give up. He strongly disagreed. Bella, do you know what you're saying? She's your sister. Harrison, you drove my father to his death. She hates us with a passion. If she's rescued and says something to my brother, you'll never get the Smith family's patents in your life. It seemed that Bella no longer wanted to pretend and got straight to the point. Harrison was stunned, then laughed wryly. Bella, didn't I tell you I gave up on that project? Harrison, stop pretending. You know what I mean. As long as you promise to ransom me out and make me Miss Harrison, I guarantee you'll get the patents. A knowing smile curved Bella's lips, and she seemed like a different person. A flash of surprise crossed Harrison's eyes, but he didn't deny it. He was weighing his options. After a long while, he smiled cynically and said, but as far as I know, you haven't gotten any benefits from your brother in these 6 years. Bella didn't care about his mockery. Instead, she smiled confidently at him. What if I tell him that Sarah was kidnapped to Country W, tortured, and forced into prostitution, and only you can afford the ransom? Do you think my brother would dare to refuse? Harrison's pupils shrank, and he looked at Bella in surprise. Are you willing to do that? He was confirming and also testing her. Bella sneered coldly. I'm in this situation because of Sarah. If she had saved me, I could have remained innocent until you came to my rescue. Since she showed me no mercy, don't blame me for being heartless. Harrison nodded in agreement. Neither of them seemed to want to pretend anymore. One revealed their ambition, and the other, afraid of being abandoned, quickly offered their bargaining chips and started negotiating. Harrison waved his hand, and the people behind him carried a combination safe and made a deal with the boss of beauty. After counting the money, the boss took a puff of his cigar and smiled meaningfully. Ms. Bella, have you forgotten that your sister has already been ransomed? Harrison's face darkened instantly, and he looked at Bella sharply. Harrison, let's offer more money. We must make sure she dies here. She seemed to have just remembered and said viciously. At that moment, I finally learned the whole truth and pieced everything together. So after you get out, you'll threaten my brother with my life. Harrison will get the patents for free, and you'll become the high-end mighty Mrs. Hewa. The so-called peaceful life and happy marriage are just about stepping on the lives of our family to climb to the top. I slapped Bella hard, laughing through my tears. About rather dying than submitting. Ridiculous about wanting to be thought highly of. You two are just birds of a feather colluding with each other. So after being reborn, my sister didn't bother pretending to have a tortured love affair and directly negotiated with Harrison. Covering her face, Bella said hatefully. So what if you know anyway? You're stuck here to be trampled on by everyone. I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed, Miss Bella. Another group of people came up to the rooftop. Jack and Mia were at the front. Jack gave me a reassuring smile, and Mia pulled me back protectively, glaring at my sister like a mother hen guarding her chicks. At that moment, another helicopter slowly descended. The boss of beauty went to greet it. Passing by Harrison, he shrugged helplessly. Here, once a deal is done, there's no going back. Doesn't your girlfriend know the rules here best? It was obvious to everyone that he was mocking Harrison for being deceived. It was clear to all that Bella had deliberately not mentioned that I had already been ransomed. It wasn't because she forgot, but because she was afraid of complications and wanted to ensure her own safety first. Our helicopter took off first. Jack nodded through the window. Mr. Harrison, see you in J City. Harrison became smaller and smaller in the distance. Even from afar, I could feel the murderous look on his face. After returning to J City, I immediately picked up Mom from the hospital under Harrison's name. Over the years, Bella always subtly reminded me that Harrison was only paying for Mom's medical treatment because of her, and she exploited me to work for her like a slave. But in my previous life, after escaping from beauty, I learned that Mom had suddenly died before she married Harrison. I immediately asked the doctor about Mom's condition. After a thorough examination, the doctor said her condition was stable, and she would be fine with proper care. I was shaking with anger. I thought Mom in my previous life was either driven to death by her or killed by her. With Jack's help, I finally got to see my brother. He listened to my experiences in Country W. Although he looked angry, he didn't seem overly surprised. It seemed that he had long known what kind of person Bella was, and his so-called economic crimes were mainly the result of Harrison's scheming. Jack said his people had found the former financial manager of the Smith family abroad, and my brother's case would soon take a turn for the better. After returning to the country, Jack didn't waste any time. He closed the research center, personally escorted his brother-in-law to turn himself in, and appeased the victims and their families. He quickly put out all the crises since the research center had been operating in secrecy. The outside world didn't know it was related to the James family group, and the matter was resolved satisfactorily. A year later, my brother was finally released. Jack restarted the project and invited my brother to invest with his technology. The following year, the product was launched and quickly captured the market. The James family's turnover increased several-fold. The company operated smoothly. Within 2 years, it left the Hill family group far behind. 5 years later, on my way to the company, a deranged woman stopped my car. When I got out, I realized it was Bella, who had been missing for a long time. Sarah, now that you're so rich, why didn't you ransom me? She was emaciated with sunken eyes, as if she didn't have long to live. Didn't Harrison save you? To be honest, I was quite surprised. I hadn't seen her in J City in the past 5 years. I thought Harrison was ashamed to bring her back and had kept her elsewhere. Unexpectedly, she had been in beauty all along. Looking up at the sky, I slowly remembered that this year, Country H had intervened in the Civil War in Country W, and many of our compatriots had been rescued. Bella had also escaped during the chaos, just like I did in my previous life. I lost my chastity. How could he save me? Bella shouted at me. It's all your fault. You made him think I was worthless. After you left, he hated me for deceiving him and actually sold me back to beauty for the same price. I looked at her indifferently. Bella, isn't all this the result of your own actions? What's my fault? She argued. I just didn't want to be threatened by his family like the original owner of this body. I had to endure hardships and his abuse to make him feel sorry for me. I don't want that kind of love. I'm a movie queen. I won't be coerced. I want to rewrite my life. I want to live fearlessly and make him think highly of me. She rambled on, looking at me defiantly. You don't understand my hardships at all. I was a Grand Slam movie queen. I won countless awards. You should support me and understand me. If you had saved me, I'd be Mrs. Harrison today. You saw my success before. It's all your fault. I looked at her coldly. What hardships? You're just used to everyone catering to you and sacrificing themselves for you. If you can't even understand basic human relationships and family bonds, yet you expect others to think highly of you, you're both ignorant and ridiculous. Bella staggered, her face turning pale. The driver checked his watch and urged Ms. Sarah. The acquisition of the Hill family group is about to start. We should go up now. The assistant also said, That's right. They've sold all their assets but still can't cover the losses. Harrison will definitely sign the deal. Acquire the Hill family group. How could this happen? Bella grabbed her hair, looking panicked. Suddenly someone screamed. The driver and the assistant quickly protected me and stepped back. A body landed right at Bella's feet. Blood immediately spread out. Bella's eyes widened as she stared into the dead man's eyes. The crowd gathered around. Someone recognized the deceased and shouted, "My God, it's Harrison." Bella's eyes rolled back. She spat out a mouthful of blood and fell backward, Dad on the spot. "Seriously," the guy jumped off a building and scared someone else to death. The crowd buzzed with discussion, looking at their fates. I thought of Dad and also of myself, who had died desperately under a bridge in my previous life. These two people who had used our family as a part of their love game had finally met their just deserts. The twists of fate were truly amazing. The day Bella escaped from Beauty to confront me, she happened to witness Harrison's bankruptcy and suicide. Wasn't this a gift from fate after